are retellings exclusively limited to fairy tales, or are there other things you can do within the world of retellings? We know the most common retellings are things like Sleeping Beauty and Snow White and Cinderella. They're the fairy tales that we grew up with, and those are the ones we see the most often represented inside of retellings. But they are not exclusively linked to fairy tales. There's a lot you can do in the world of retelling, but you need to know this before you do it. When it comes to retellings, you cannot retell something you don't have the rights to retell. So there are two ways you can do this. Public domain open source content is available for you to use. These are really old things that you are able to use because they're in the public domain. Things like Cinderella's story or Snow White's story. They are so old, they're in the public domain, and we're all allowed to use them. Now, we've done episodes with our lawyer talking about how to know when things are in public domain and when they're not, and this is going to change every single year. So you have to do your research and you have to make sure it is in public domain before you use it. Or if you want to use something that's a little more modern, you're going to have to pay to license the characters and the different things inside of the stories to be able to use them. So if you wanted to do a Harry Potter retelling or a Hunger Games retelling, those are things you're paying an extremely high amount of money in order to retell. So it is wise, it is an intelligent choice to stick with those public domain things. The old things that started with oral tradition that have been passed on through the generations, that are really like hundreds of years old, probably going to be your best bet there. Which is why so often we sit with things like Cinderella and Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and the ones that we know Disney likes to retell. Now, you cannot retell a Disney version. If you're doing a retelling, it cannot be Disney's version. Disney's version is retellings. You have to go back to the original source material. So if you want to tell Cinderella, you can't use Disney's version. So there's no Lucifer in Cinderella. You have to use the original versions to get your material from. If you want to do an Aladdin retelling, that's not exclusive to Disney. Disney did a retelling of it. You can go back to the original Aladdin. Even something like Mulan is a retelling of an ancient Chinese ballad, two of them actually. So you can take things that you're very much aware of, but you have to go back to the source content. Now, there is a full masterclass here on the channel. I will link it in the caption so you can go through and actually learn how to appropriately and safely create really good, strong retellings. I'm not going to get too much into that. But you do need to know, it doesn't just have to be a fairy tale retelling. My book, Along Came a Spider, is based on a nursery rhyme. It's based on Little Miss Muffet. And so you can go and you can look at nursery rhymes. You can look at legends. You can look at different lore. You can look at different mythologies, and you can retell a lot of those. You want to make sure you're being very careful and very respectful as you're doing this. Some people like to do retellings of things that are kind of like faith-based or religion-based. Those be very, very careful on. Some of them you can do, some of them you can't do, but a lot of them you shouldn't do just because we don't want to offend anybody. We don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want to cause any problems. So just be mindful and be respectful if you're going to be doing something that is connected to the way that people believe. But you can also very strongly lean into the legends and the lore and the mythology. So if you want to talk about Icarus, or if you want to talk about some of the old Greek gods or the things in mythology that come up, a lot of that you can do as long as you're respectful and you're paying attention to how you're doing it. So there's things that you can do that are not just fairy tale based. If you want to do retellings without getting too involved in the oversaturated market of like Snow White and Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and things like that, you can look a little bit further out. So look at those nursery rhymes. You can look at the Pied Piper. You can look at Jack and the Beanstalk. You can look at things like Little Miss Muffet. You can look at nursery rhymes and legends and lore. Robin Hood, that's a legend, right? There's a lot of things that you can be doing that are retellings that are not fairy tale based. So you can pull in a lot of different things there. You do want to, of course, check out the masterclass on how to write really good, strong retellings that are going to do well for you, making sure you get all of those touchstones in there and all of the things, and making sure that you're actually retelling it and not just telling the same story that everybody else tells. I've seen people call things retellings when really it was just they just told the Little Mermaid story without switching it up. So make sure that you are actively writing a retelling and not just republishing something that's already out there. I mean, just be careful of how you do it, and the masterclass will help you walk through that as well. But making sure that you're looking for unique perspectives, even so much as like old songs. You can retell some from like different cultural traditions. You can do again, legends and lore and nursery rhymes and things that you kind of grew up with. Some of those little fun sayings, little fun characters that have come up along the way. Just make sure that you have the ability to do that because they are in the public domain or because you have licensed them. Now, drop your questions on this down below. I am the fan-proclaimed queen of retellings because I've written so many of them over the years. There's so many of them. And I never run out of ideas. I don't run out of characters. Like, I have several versions of Cinderella. I have several versions of some of these other characters that are out or coming out, and there's always spins to these things. So retellings always do really, really well, and I'm here to help you with your questions. So drop those down below. I will see you in the upcoming episodes, daily videos here on the channel, helping you navigate the world of publishing, from your writing to your publishing to your marketing, to make this your most profitable and most fun author year ever. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.